Started. Oh shit, we're live. Hey everybody, episode 51, This Life in Tech. I'm Jason.
And I'm Dan.
Dude,
no,
it's so...
that's not Dan. That was close. I'm Dan. That's Vader.
Yeah, well, I can't tell the difference. It's like looking in a mirror.
I know. We're both sexy and black.
So I was saying, man, real quick, it's so windy here, man. So on this segment, I was riding outside because it's glorious out here. It was 75 yesterday. It's 80 today already. And I'm like, I got to ride outside, man. I got to get that vitamin D. And so on this segment I rode, I usually average somewhere between 18 and 20 miles an hour. Okay.
Okay.
This wind was so fucking bad, and it's worse now, that on the way out, I averaged 10 miles an hour. Okay. So I was riding into a block headwind. And what makes it worse too is there's also gusts that are lateral. So you're riding like at an angle so that the wind doesn't catch your wheels and flip you over, right? So you got to ride into the wind on a slant. It's hard. But on the way back, this tells you how strong this wind is. On the way back, I averaged like 26 miles an hour.
Because the wind was at your back. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God, man. But the nice thing is when it's this windy, there's like nobody out. There's no cars. There's no people. But fucking tumbleweeds, man. I almost got hit by a giant tumbleweed.
Already?
Yeah, man. Dude, it's warm. It's warm.
That's hilarious.
So, man, do you want to bring up the LinkedIn thing? This is it.
Yeah. I'm just tweeting out our own stuff here. And now I hear ourselves on this. I'm tweeting out our, because you've got it set up on that delay.
Yeah.
So what are we talking? My part, I'm definitely going to talk about this because it's really irritating, and I hope everyone just stops talking about or stop actually promoting clickbait. Hate it. I don't understand why anyone in our industry, technology in general, why are you clicking on things for clickbait when it's not true whatsoever? So this thing just irritates me beyond all belief, and that is. One, I think it's so. This cat named Christopher Murphy on LinkedIn, he claims to be some cybersecurity researcher, scientist, all this kind of stuff, right? So, and I'll pull up the exact his exact message because it's really irritating. I don't understand why people do this. I mean, I know why they want to make themselves feel important. They want to say things and get readers and think that, but what they're doing is they're promoting. To me, it's disingenuous. Everything about this guy in this particular case was disingenuous, and it really irritates me.
And we've talked about this before, but and this is why more than not I don't participate in social media. I mean, I have a presence, and I think about personal branding, and I've contemplated different strategies and so forth, but ultimately I don't do it because I feel like it's just a giant circle jerk. It's people virtue signaling and just spouting nonsense, and you can't really engage in a meaningful dialogue that way because that's not why people are using it.
Yeah, his tag is founder, chief scientist, cybersecurity theorist, applied cybersecurity scientist. He went to Waterbury State Tech. All right, so I'm gonna bring up his original posting, which just irritates me.
While you're looking for it, and I made this comment earlier, but this summarizes how I feel. If I wanted to stand in an echo chamber and listen to a bunch of morons spout nonsense, I'd go to the zoo and visit the monkey cage. Yeah. To me, that's what it's like. It's just a bunch of monkeys flinging poop. And what's unfortunate is there are interesting people to have conversations with. But it's so hard to filter through the bullshit because especially after Twitter made their change late in 2017 in the way they displayed the feed instead of just a chronological timeline, it's fucking unusable. Facebook long became unusable for me.
All right. So here's this cat's thing, and I'm going to read it verbatim. White House security before World War II and cybersecurity today are similar. Anyone could approach the front door and request entry. Then Pearl Harbor happened, and White House security evolved. Isn't the attack on the last election system a cyber Pearl Harbor? One difference in a cyber war is there are no innocents. Everyone is under attack. Current battle plans are to hunker down behind virtual walls, hoping an attacker doesn't come, and security holds. The forward-thinking strategy, harden existing security and respond to successful attacks with new fortifications, all while removing barriers to access. This strategy would have failed in World War II, and it's failing in cyber war today. Blah, blah, blah. Then he goes on to talk about how compliance isn't security. That part's true. That's the only part in this thing is true. Okay? So I then say, what attack?
Right. Yeah. Yes, exactly. What attack?
So, my opinion, and it has been this for a long time, social engineering is not an attack. That's a carny. That's a carnival trick. Parlor tricks. That is social engineering. Me making you believe something that's not true takes zero technical ability. That's me getting something out of you because I was able to con you.
Well, the technical term for that, the current technical term for that, I think you're correct, is clickbait. The traditional, especially military term for that is propaganda.
Yeah, right. So this guy. So what does someone do when you don't agree with them on Twitter? They immediately go to personally attack you, which is what this guy did. Clearly, he didn't look anything up about me or anything like that, or maybe go ask one of the connections he's got that also is a connection we have in common. Go, hey, what is this going on here? He goes, you cannot be much of a scientist if you ignore reality. The post isn't political, but simple fact. I could have pointed to the NSA breach, OPM breach, and on it goes. Well, you didn't. You said Pearl Harbor. You didn't mention anything about how the government agencies have possibly, on purpose leaked their tools like NSA may have done. OPM, they didn't do. I can't believe they would have compromised every person on purpose. They were just silly. But anyway, please keep your delusional speech in an alt-fact environment. Science requires a willingness to question everything in the pursuit of facts to make a decision. You may choose to interpret facts differently, but a fact is not a variable.
Well, where did he question facts? He was making grandiose, unfounded statements. That's not scientific questioning.
not only do I have a problem with his premise that Pearl Harbor attack is like a cybersecurity attack on the election system. One, they're completely different. One, I think it also, for all the men and women that have served in the military, someone being attacked prior to being declared war on is completely different than someone that's constantly attacking or the internet. If you don't know that the internet is constantly under attack today in 2018, I really don't know what, I don't have anything to say to you. I just don't. It's common. So again, he decides, so my response to him was, you said the election system. There's no evidence. We have the media saying things. Nothing has come out. It's been a year now. Nothing has come out. Maybe some of our election voting systems were compromised. Maybe they weren't. I don't know. But I haven't seen any integrity monitoring. I haven't seen file integrity monitoring evidence. I've seen no logs. I've seen no one put out actual evidence, even something that might make you believe that it's happened. It's hardware. Yeah, if someone had it, sure, it could possibly be compromised. But it's a closed system. So...
Well, right, and even the clickbaity media that's been out there hasn't asserted that the machines themselves were attacked and compromised. The assertion has always been that it was an astroturfing, which, I mean, we know that happens constantly from all sides, but that's not a cyber attack. Yeah. That's propaganda.
Yeah. So then this cat goes next, tells me to grow up! Exclamation point.
God.
You're defending an undefensible cybersecurity process by introducing noise into the conversation. It is clear your knowledge in cybersecurity is limited. Therefore, you must interject noise to hide your lack of understanding. So twice he's attacked me because he can't produce anything. So your statement is just laughable. First, you equate what might have happened at Pearl Harbor, where war was not declared to cyber attacks. If you believe that cyber war has not been declared, you are clearly missing a lot. Next, when no evidence of tampering with election systems has been presented, yet people like you accept this reporting is just not science. What did the image look like prior to deployment? Was file integrity monitoring deployed? Where are the logs? Basically, since nothing is available, I have every reason to question everything. as to what you believe about me, I don't care. You are exactly what is wrong with this profession and the constant fear mongering associated with it. Then
Well,
he's like, blah,
and
blah,
it's
blah,
the
you keep focusing on this. And I just simply said, at the very end, so because he admits, hey, if you want readers, you have to give them something that's compelling so they'll click on it and you'll get followers. And I just ended it with clickbait is wrong.
yeah. Well, this is what happens when you base your personal self-esteem on the follower count and the like count. Which now this is real, and there is science to back this up. The dopamine response that is trained through likes and subscribes and instant gratification through social media is a systemic issue. But
I'm like,
this is the problem with an adversarial outlook where everybody instantly becomes the enemy.
Yeah.
And this is McCarthyism, is what it is.
Yeah. So I'm like, look, I mean, and this is anyone. I really don't care what anyone thinks about me. My ego is more than satisfied with the accomplishments that are real in my life. I know what I've done. People that have worked for me, I've worked for, they know what I've done. Those things can't be taken away. Just can't be. So, the thing that I would say to all these people out there that clearly just want to create clickbait, want to be a troll, that's fine, because I enjoy trolling people on occasion. To me, it's somewhat fun when they put something out there that's silly. I just want to completely diffuse their topic of conversation with something that's even more silly than what they're saying.
Yeah.
And that's fine. But if you want to go to the personal attacks, I'm like, dude, you don't know me. But, the last person that did that on Reddit who went off on me, I said, look, dude, I'll be at ShmooCon. Come talk to me. No one showed up. Don't have keyboard courage. If you be human enough that if you're going to say something over the internet, be willing to say it to the person in person.
Well, the other thing that upsets me too a little bit about shit like this is that it's lazy satire. The art of writing satire used to be really admired and hard, because good satire is hard. In fact, if one of the best pieces of examples of this is Gulliver's Travels. There's a big scene in the book. I don't think it's in the movies because fuck it, I've never watched them. But it's definitely in the book where Gulliver, when he's giant size, pisses on the queen's house of the little people, and that there's this whole satire written into it of the English crown. So, but that was really hard to be creative and create that. Now, both of us know that the vast majority of people aren't creative to begin with, and the majority of people that might be are too scared, too lazy, too fearful to actually put themselves out there and take the risk of creating. So it's much easier to sit here and create these clickbait shit articles that don't really assert anything. They're just in a half-assed way, rehashing what's come from other sources, and then asserting like you're the asshole for questioning for it.
I question everything.
Well, why should you?
So, I mean, and what it winds up doing is it takes away from the message of those people that are really trying to learn something. I look at this. So, Amanda Rousseau, arguably one of the top malware researchers out there. She does it for, I think it's Endgame now. Some cat on there told her she was an amateur and doesn't know that much. I'm going, really? You're going to say this to her? And there's all this, long people that basically he was putting her down for one. I don't remember the exact thing. Something had to do with cryptocurrency and telling her that she's not any good and putting her down as a woman. So it's like the first thing this person did when there was a disagreement was talk about her knowledge, doesn't have it, and then also put her down. At least my interpretation of it was, then attack her gender. And that's the reason why, she can't be that good. All of her research has been really sound. I mean, it takes away then all of a sudden you got someone that has no idea who is right in the conversation. So you just possibly took someone who's actually looking for real research. All they see is you're an amateur, don't know what you're talking about. And now that person goes to find someone else because they have no idea.
Right. Well, and then, that's part and parcel in the conversations we've had before with you know, the sheer amount of information that flows in on a daily basis, there's a two-pronged problem here. How do you curate it so that it stays in a consumable form with integrity, but also how do you filter it? And that's exactly what this, if there's any fake news, it's that there's news at all. That is the fake fucking news.
Yeah. Today, I mean, how can you decipher what's real and what's not real? No one knows if they're just the person watching. And
Right.
we wonder why here in the United States that education continues to decline, why, the poverty levels are getting lower and lower, why our STEM, scores are lower, and why people believe that if you work at McDonald's, you should be able to feed a family of four off of, now 15 some dollars an hour, depending on where you go. Hey, you know what? Everything at McDonald's is meant for the college kid, the high school kid that's working while they're going to do something else, not for an adult.
No, that's gas and beer money. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, and this is the problem too. We're stuck in this situation because of higher education, in my opinion, where there's a confusion between training and education, and our training, whether you want to take that as certification or 2-year education, or even just coming right out of high school and going into a pure trade, it's behind the curve. Probably what, 5-10 years?
Yeah, something like that.
Right? So your only alternative, which is the big holy grail promise, is to go to 4-year, but you're not being trained to do a job there. You're supposed to be educated, and that's not the same thing. So then people are surprised that higher ed isn't producing skilled workforce. No, they're producing an educated workforce. It's not the same fucking thing.
It's completely different. The way I look at it, it's you can be self-taught. Not going to say that you can't, but there's very few people out there who can be self-taught from the very beginning and actually have a disciplined regiment about them that can go about a fundamental scientific process of cause and effect, troubleshooting, and there. Does it exist? Yes. Can you go to a trade school and start doing it? Absolutely. But you have to have someone that's going to teach you a formalized process. Maybe that's a parent that did that. No problem with any of that at all. But very few discipline themselves in order to get there. I can pretty much tell very, very quickly if the person I'm working with has formalized training or self-taught, if they played in a team sport or did not, or some type of team environment. It's very easy to tell. And unless they've had a good amount of formalized training, I'm probably not going to hire them. They're going to have to, if I do, and they didn't have formalized training, the likelihood of me retaining them is very, very low. Not that they haven't, it's just I can tell by the way in which they attack a problem. I can tell in which the way they interact with the current members of the team and teams that they have to, coexist with. If they can't get along, it does not matter to me how big of a superstar you might be in something, because I need cohesion. I need the entire fleet of automobiles working at one time, not just a particular component.
Yeah. No, absolutely, man. And so and for me, this also factors into this. I'll get into. I'm going to call it politics, but I don't mean like Trump, right? Because it's not a systemic Trump issue. It's our societal political climate, where it seems to be increasing, I should say, anti-intellectual, to the point where like now you read a lot of shit about dismissing the importance of IQ, which to me, sure, you can do well without a high IQ. A high IQ isn't required to do well, but IQ matters, because look at the opposite. Let's go back to the military. I mean, what is it? 83? The military, if you're at an 82 or below, the military will not accept you. Right?
I think there might be some exceptions, but it's getting harder and harder. They no longer need cannon fodder.
Yeah, well, because you can't do anything. Yeah. Right? So the idea that education doesn't matter and a formalized process, whether you are somewhat of an exception and you've disciplined yourself into that yourself, or, you know, through a close, let's say, like you said, a parent, or you do what most people do, which is go through formalized training or education, right? I don't know how people think they're going to be able to get ahead without that. Well, I mean, unless they think the state, so to speak, and this the politics side is going to take care of it. And listen, man, culture is not your friend. I'll quote
Right.
Terence McKenna. Society is not here to help you. It's to establish a framework with which in you can be successful or not successful.
That is very true. You know, some of our friends, and actually TK, who's been on the show here with us, you know, Navy SEALs are one of the most highly educated force. They need them. They're specialized. I mean, they're special forces, but they're primarily made up of enlisted. The officers, from what I understand, don't stay there very long. They're in there for 2 years and they're out. I think there's some exceptions once they get to SEAL Team 6 and some things like that, from what I understand. But, you know, I was never, you know, never in uniform, never military. So I only know based on what I at least comprehended. But TK is highly educated. The other SEALs that he's introduced me to are highly educated. They all have an undergrad. Some of them even have master's degrees. I mean, they have to be. I think TK's undergrad is in math.
Yeah, it's math or like a mechanical engineering type field. Yeah, yeah.
So they have to be. Why? Because you need people that are going to be educated. Not just they had the physical education, but in those types of people, they have to also be able to educated in the mind. It's not just whether or not you're an effective and efficient, you know, killer. It's, can you think?
Well, you know, one thing education typically, you know, by the spirit of the academy should impart is the ability to engage in long-term reasoning, right? I'm going to go through an enormous amount of short-term suffering to reach this abstract goal down the road, and it's going to be worth it. That's something that I think is unique to the academy. And so it'd be interesting to ask TK and some of the other guys. I've never asked them this because it just occurred to me. It seems to me that the education is a consequence. It's a correlation from their base attitude. Because I mean, that selection process predisposes people to be this way, clearly, right? Because they're all genetically the same. I mean, look at them. They're all physically the same, more or less. They look the same if you look at them. They move the same, and they act the same. And part of that's the selection, part of that's the training, I have to assume. And so I think you have this predisposition to be able to not only tactically engage in the environment at a very high level, which more than not is physical, right? But there's also this abstract part so that they can, in high stress situations, maintain this awareness of that long-term goal despite the short-term obstacles. And that's pretty unique, man. That's pretty unique.
Yeah, and it's one of the things that, so most of the people that I work with all went to a particular university for their MBA. And they were asking me, like, why wouldn't I want to go there? Why do I want to go somewhere else? And to me, it's simple. If we're going to evolve as an organization, if we're all being taught the same method, then we have no way of really questioning. It's just, oh yeah, that's what we learned. We're all going to think the same way. If we all think that same way in that process, we're all going to come to the same conclusion.
Yeah.
So who's going to be the dissent? Who's going to be the one to ask a different question? So when I go through my MBA process, I don't want to go to where everyone else has been, because then how am I going to contribute and evolve the organization from a business perspective? I mean, technology-wise, it's completely different, but if you're not a business leader in an organization, if you don't think that way, and it just so happens to be the business unit you happen to oversee, in my case, is technology, you're going to not be able to make a difference. If you're just a technology person, the business people will not even listen to you.
No, because otherwise what you're participating in is a status quo-driven monoculture.
Yeah.
Which isn't desirable, and anybody that's rational should understand that, in my opinion.
Well, you would think.
Well, Which, so this ties back to the social media issue, like you were pointing out, is so you can't engage in a meaningful dialogue with somebody. I mean, imagine when we started out. I remember like posting on forums and engaging in dialogue. I remember calling people that I had met. Like I had made some friends at that time. It was what was before SBC Global? Pac Bell.
Yeah, I think so.
I think that's the way it went. It was Pac Bell here, and then it became SBC. When it was SBC, they had a big data center up in San Ramon, up north in California.
Yep.
And I had called in for really technical, high-level support. And man, you got to know the people, and you would meet them like at DEF CON, and you could email them and call them, and you could have these dialogues, and there was an exchange of knowledge, right? And there was also this understanding that that was how it was supposed to be, that when somebody was new and they were taking the initiative to ask questions and acquire knowledge, that it was beholden on to you, if you weren't a prick, to answer their questions. And not spoon feed them, but help, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think that exists too much anymore, man. I mean, I'm not saying obviously within a department it may, but what I mean is across where the vast majority of the information is, which is the internet.
Yeah, that's funny that you mentioned that. So I had this 360 review that went out. So it went out to my boss, it went out to my direct reports, it went out to my peers, and it went out to other people. And one of the comments that came back was like, what could I improve upon? Now, mind you, from a leadership, like one of the questions was, and I also sent this out to people that I know that don't necessarily like me. So the lowest rating I got was on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely are you to recommend Daniel as a leader, was an 8. I gave myself a 9, and I was the only 9. And then I had others that rated me as a 10. So either if you didn't like me, you either gave me an 8 or a 10. So, all right, I'm doing pretty good. So, but one of the comments in there was, I really wish Dan would not make everything a teaching moment. I sometimes wish he would just give me the answer or give me more direction. Well, guess what? I am never going to do that. If I have to give you the answer, why do I need you?
Right.
You're there to perform a function, and how am I going to help you to grow if I'm just giving you the answer? I give you a little bit of the information to help you figure out what that next step might be, the next 3 steps are going to be, because that's my job as someone is going to evolve you as a technology professional. So if that's like some of the, the knock that I get, one of the other ones was, I wish Dan would slow down.
Sounds like my ex-wife.
So I wish Dan would slow down. He tends to be 2 to 3 steps ahead of us, and we're trying to figure out how he got to that answer. And I'm kind of like, well, I'm available anytime. You want to have a conversation about that? No problem. But in a group meeting, no, I'm not going to take the time, because I know some people are already there, and the more junior people, if you have a question, then come talk to me, and I'll help you through that process. But that's, again, a part of the process.
Well, and you and I have talked about our backgrounds in technology quite a bit, and this is something too that people misunderstand. As a junior person, I would argue that it is part of your job to spend as much extra time beyond your normal duties as necessary to ensure that you're getting, not that you are, but that you're getting up to speed. Mm-hmm. I would come in at 6 in the morning and I would leave at 10 at night. And I did that for years. I came in on the weekends and set up my own lab to try things and learn by myself. And that's not to toot my own horn. It's that I had an awareness that I wasn't where I wanted to be. So there's only one way to get there, and that's to walk whatever that path is, right? And take whatever steps you can identify. And to me, that's the meaningful conversation between people, is not what should I do? What is that? What should that end game be? How the fuck do I know what that is for you? You identify that. What I can help you with, and I think this is the meaningful part between humans really, is let's talk about the steps from where you're at and that destination. That's meaningful. And I think that you can have a concrete conversation about that.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I'll make it the analogy in this way. The street beggar, the son or daughter of a street beggar, what is their goal? Well, to be on a better street corner. They want to beg at the better street corner. What does a prince dream of? The prince doesn't dream of being king. The prince dreams of being the king of many kingdoms, right? If you're someone that's, people ask me, well, why are you going to get your MBA? You're in technology. Well, because I want to be the CEO of a publicly traded company, of a, if possible, a Fortune 5,000 company. I want to be the CEO of. I don't want to stop as a CIO. I'm shooting much further, because if my goal is just to be CTO, well, what am I going to do next? I'm already that. If it's just CIO, that's one step away. Now, 10 years ago, CIO isn't what I wanted to be. I wanted to be a CISO. That evolved. I'm like, you need to shoot further than where you're at. If you stop, if you're just like, hey, I just want to get to the next step. What? No, I tell my people, you need to figure out where you want to be in 20 years from now, because everything you do has got to be towards that. And I do this in technology. Where are we going to evolve the technology in our company in 3 years from now? Better have a plan. Doesn't mean the plan doesn't change. It changes all the time. But stop. Why shoot small?
Yeah. Well, because what are you doing? What are you doing? It's much better to set the bar high and miss it. Because I don't beat myself up that bad over failures. And this is the thing too with junior, and this ties into education and training too. That is the time to make mistakes. There's usually a much better leniency. There's much better understanding of committing mistakes. And that's when you really learn. You learn not only how to handle a mistake as an individual, but the mistake itself can be very instructive.
Absolutely.
People are so obsessed with, you see this in higher ed. They're so obsessed with grades and points. And I understand how it's important. And it isn't a measurement. And it does mean something. They're not meaningless. But to make that the end goal, that's the measure of how you're performing in walking the path towards that destination. It's not the destination.
Yep. It's a point in time. My oldest son, who didn't do as well as he wanted to do this past marking period. He got a little bit too big for his britches, and because his last year, he did amazing. So he decided he wanted to take almost all AP classes and 2 honors classes. And I went, that workload seems awfully tough. Oh, I got this. Had his worst marking period. And I'm like, how do you feel? He goes, not very good. I said, I hope that taste of defeat in your mouth is bitter, that you'll remember it.
Yeah.
And it's okay that you failed. I'm not going to yell at you. We're past that point. But guess what? Just like I keep telling you, you're only as good as your next accomplishment. Well, that was a point in time. At that point in time, you were that kind of a student. Guess what? You're going to have another marking period. You're going to have another test, another grade, and you'll be that good next time. But don't sit on that one, because once that one's done, it doesn't matter if you succeeded or you failed. Take a moment to appreciate what you did or what you didn't do. Correct. Move on to the next. Forget it. That's done. It's over with. You can't change it. Move on to the next, because the next one is going to be even more important.
Well, and I think this is why, whether it's training like trade training or 2-year is important, and certainly education is important, although we both agree that they're materially different, is you should be acquiring the skills necessary to not allow failure to define you as a person. And I think we see that in the expression, for instance, in like the social media, that people aren't picking that up. So they need this quick dopamine fix to reestablish their sense of self. And that's dangerous, man. That's dangerous.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's going to continue to go. I don't foresee in the near future where social media, even in its current way in which it's consumed, is going to change. It's given too many people a voice that, one, don't deserve a voice in that manner, because they're just spewing off nonsense. Not that, everyone does have a voice, but it's starting to become, we're starting to confuse what's fact versus opinion, what's newsworthy and fake news. I mean, I did not vote for President Trump, didn't vote for Hillary either. But his aspect of what's fake news is not my definition of fake news. Because at this particular point, I'm almost going, all news that comes from any source is fake. At this point, I am going under the premise of this: everything that is said is fake until proven to not be.
Yeah, right. I mean, what is fake is the news. It's not news. It's not news. That is what's fake.
Yeah. So that's my 2 cents on it. It's all fake until proven to not be.
Well, and I'll finish with this. And this is one of the things, like I was saying a couple shows ago about the whole net neutrality thing. This is why actually I'm kind of excited that it got repealed, because you already see communities standing up their own services. There's a huge amount of buzz around that. And so, we don't need another Twitter. We don't need another Instagram. The next big innovation, I'll call it right now, I think it's going to be either a product that curates and filters, or products in those two categories that are separate.
Yeah.
I don't need ways to generate.
I'm excited about it as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I am a big believer in let the market decide. You don't like it, move somewhere else.
Yeah.
Don't tell me, oh, you're not able to. You are always able. You can always have a choice. This is the part that a lot of people, oh, I don't have a choice. Yes, you do. You just may not like the consequences of that choice. You always have a choice.
Well, don't be afraid to suffer. You're not going to die. I mean, dude, listen, I've said this before, and people forget this. Right now, somewhere in Southeast Asia, India, let's call it the Orient, somebody's getting eaten by a tiger right this very second. You and I don't have that problem. So no. What are you scared of?
Please suffer.
Yeah.
The invader.
Yeah. Yeah.
You will be there. You will grow strong in the dark side.
Oh, God, man. You're not going to die. Nobody's going to kill you. It's going to hurt mentally a little bit, sure, but so what? You're not getting eaten by a tiger. Stop.
Unless you're in Southeast Asia.
That's a whole different ball of wax, man. Right? That's a whole different ball of wax.
Not a game I want to play.
No, I don't want to worry about that. And, I was born into a situation where I didn't have to worry about that. And that's just the way it worked out. So
no, you just grew up in a situation where the lake might catch on fire.
It did. Well, yeah, it didn't in my lifetime, but not too long before that.
That happened once. The probability of it happening a second time is much higher than if it never happened at all.
Yeah, well, I mean, here's the thing. It's not like people have stopped putting shit in Lake Erie.
Yeah, they just haven't caught it on fire yet.
Yeah. I don't remember the last time it did, but it wasn't that long ago, man.
Yeah.
It wasn't that long ago. I mean, we're not talking about like Stone Age primitive. I mean, this was well within industrialized society.
Yeah, it was in the 1900s.
Well, quite frankly, I think the only thing that's probably prevented it is all the factory work disappeared with the automotive industry. So there's not so much waste there, I guess. I don't know.
It's in Mexico. It's in Alabama, because I think that's where BMW is, in Alabama, I think. Or maybe South Carolina.
It's somewhere down there, man.
Yeah.
We can call it the South.
Yeah, it's in the South. Ford's in Mexico now. I don't know where General Motors is doing their stuff, but it's not in Ohio as much.
No. Well, our big manufacturing was actually, yeah, our big manufacturing, particularly like where I grew up, were rubber, the tires. We had Goodyear and stuff like that. Had.
All right. Well, I think we're out of time.
I think we are, man. That's episode 51.
Yeah, episode 51 in the bag. Hey, recap, no clickbait. Figure out how to get formalized training in one way, shape, or another. Stop shooting small, shoot big. Don't be satisfied. Don't be afraid to suffer a little bit. I did it. Ninja did it over here. I mean, we did the majority of our academic career while working full time. Worked for startups, traveled all over the place. Got to do it. You grow quickly. You will learn a lot about yourself very quickly.
If you want to grow as a human, yeah. I mean, you're not going to grow sitting around.
You got it.
Cool. All right.
All right, my friends. 51.
Done.
Vader and I say peace.
Take care, everybody. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.